Welcome to Queer and Loathing, the only podcast that was there when you were born and will be there when you die. I'm Brett, and with me are my co-hosts.
I'm Mel.
And I'm Samantha.
And we are here today to kind of go over a little bit about ourselves, our taste in horror, history as besties.
Besties.
Yeah, and just generally talk about a bunch of bullshit. So, I guess I can go first. Like I said, I'm Brett. I've loved horror ever since I was old enough to not be pants-shittingly terrified of it.
How old was that?
Well, I was a very sheltered child. My mother kept a really tight leash. I think I watched my first PG-13 movie when I was 11, and it was Castaway, and I had to cover my eyes when he knocked his tooth out with the ice skate, because that was too graphic.
I mean, to be fair, though, tooth
graphic.
trauma is hardcore to start with.
Yeah, I
Very
can't say I
real
disagree.
when you're a child
Yes.
and just hemorrhaging teeth.
Yeah, so like...
I mean...
So I was a very like fearful little kid. Like I went through a neighborhood haunted house as a child, and there was a witch, like she was the finale, and she was just very like screaming, "I'm melting." And I cried and was inconsolable until this woman came out and like showed me she was okay. And then I like was able to calm down.
It was very sweet of her.
Yeah, and then once another Halloween, I like walked up and it was one of those things where like there's a scarecrow sitting on the bench and you think it's fake, but it's a person and he moved.
That's my nightmare.
And I was 3 houses down before my mother even realized what happened.
We had one of those psychos in my neighborhood when I was a kid where he would always be one of the many props, and you never knew, but he had the best candy.
Oh.
No.
And so it was always worth the risk because this was the 90s. So, like, the candy you could have gotten would have been, like, I don't know, like loose Smarties or like like just something awful, like some kind of
Milk Duds
taffy.
And,
yeah, like horrible 90s candy, but he
Yeah.
had like really good candy. And so you're like, I'm going to risk it for the biscuit.
Yeah, talk about risk versus reward.
Yeah, I'm food motivated.
I would have someone walk in front of me. You're like, ooh, you first.
But yeah, so I would see like just I guess things on TV are they just spooky. I started reading like Stephen King around maybe 11 or 12, and that was kind of my gateway because my mom didn't care that I read whatever. So I read all the Stephen King. But it was kind of like I got so fascinated by the idea of like, oh, it's something like illicit that I shouldn't be watching. So I'd literally go on like, it was like parentsguide.com, and it literally just like tells you like the content of the like, here's what like, this is the violence, this is the nudity. And I would just like read it and be like, whoa, that sounds so crazy.
For like a movie that was out?
Yeah, that I had not seen and was not allowed to see. But that was how I like could experience like what was in it.
Oh.
Isn't that weird?
Yes,
Yeah.
and I love it.
I did not know this about you.
Yeah, and they
Do you
censored
still
curse
do it?
words on this site. So for the longest time, I thought the word pussy was pissy because they censored the U. And I got from context like what it meant. So I assumed like, oh, it's genitals, it's probably pissy. Only to later find out that's not actually what
But
it
it's
was.
a good guess, like
Yeah.
contextually.
Yeah, I give myself credit for that. But yeah, so then I would watch like kind of edited for TV movies. Like my thing was like Friday nights, I think it was AMC would do like Friday Night Fear or whatever. And they would show just like whatever they had the rights to. So it was like Friday the 13th part 7. And I'd watch it with like the volume like all the way down, all the doors closed. Not that I wasn't allowed to at this point, but just like my dad was a really light sleeper and he would just come out and be like, shut it off and go to bed.
So a lot of your first experiences with horror were these like almost censored peripheral ways in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's fair to say. And then, like, kind of high school, that's when I started to be allowed to kind of watch whatever. I could watch anything except Tarantino movies. My parents decided they were the epitome of violence, and they didn't want me to get
That sure
desensitized.
works.
Right.
They were
Sure
right
never did.
for the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
Like they were right to stop you from watching Tarantino,
Yeah.
but they weren't correct
And
on
it
the reason.
probably saved me from being even more of like an insufferable like film bro douche.
It stopped you from
that I
being
am.
me.
Yeah, it did. There, but for the grace of God, go I. That's what I say when I look at you.
So how do you define horror?
That's a really good question. I have given it a little bit of thought, but I don't know if I have a very satisfying answer. I guess to me, horror is anything that it could be related to the subject matter, like dark and disturbing, or psychologically upsetting, or violent, or it can be about the reaction it instills, whether that's fear, but also surprise, disgust. I think those all fall within the umbrella for me. Like, a movie doesn't need to be scary for me to consider it horror, nor does it need to be gory or, it's almost like the famous definition of pornography.
You know it when you see
I can't
it.
define it, but I know it when I see it. Yeah, and I very much, I watch kind of everything. I really just, I watch everything from, the best, arty-farty or, the old, classics to, found footage garbage on Tubi.
You watch a lot of trash.
I watch a lot of trash, and there's lots of trash that I enjoy, but I also love, it's such a rare treat to find, a really quality movie that I find myself thinking about after. And that's, that to me maybe is, the hallmark of, a great horror movie, is, I'm thinking about it after and I'm still unpacking whether it's the ideas or, the characters or, how it made me feel, and I'm still kind of, living in it, in a sense. Yeah, for instance, this is kind of a weird example, but, Nope, the Jordan Peele movie. I really enjoy it. It's not one of my favorites. I don't, watch it all the time. I don't find it... I enjoy watching it, but it's not, one I go to over and over. But I just think about that movie sometimes because there's so much thematically to unpack. And I just, am so drawn to, figuring out what it means. Or, what it could mean to me versus what it meant to him. Or, I love to just, chew on it.
Well, talk about a movie that was so, it felt so new, but so old at the same time. You're we see these old, tropes it's playing off of. It knows what it's doing, but also you're you leave going, oh, there's a new feeling here. What's happening?
Yes.
I don't know. That's how I felt. I think I saw it twice.
I think I did too. Yeah, I loved that it was kind of Signs meets Jaws meets I don't know, film history, and yeah, it was just so so rich.
I recommend the commentary track, as I often do, that you can watch some of the behind the scenes, because not only do you get Jordan Peele's sort of reasoning behind some of what he does, but one of his producers uses a lot of big words incorrectly, and it just
oh no,
oh, that's gonna kill me.
Made me really happy.
Oh, I hate it.
Okay, so
do you
Brett,
own it? Sorry.
Yes, I do. I own it on Blu-ray. You can borrow it whenever you
That was my next question.
please. Yes, of course. So here is the hard question: is if you had to recommend, I know I'm the worst, 3 horror movies that you think would show someone Brett's view of horror. If you could curate intro to Brett horror 101, what would 3 of those movies be?
Okay, I think I've got them. These aren't necessarily my favorites, although they're all movies that I love or really enjoy. The first would be Carnival of Souls from 1962. It's kind of a very much a proto David Lynch, it inspired him, so it's got a really dreamy atmosphere. It's this guy, I think his name was Hank Herc or something. The only feature film he ever made. He made industrial films, and it was all non-actors except the lead, who was a legit actor. I can't remember who she studied under, Meisner or somebody. And it's just so dreamy and haunting, and there's a crazy organ score that is just so unsettling. So that's definitely one. I love that dreamy, surreal feeling where you're kind of it's less about the mechanics of the plot and story and more about just what is this feeling? What is this atmosphere? We're just kind of living in this character's head. Yeah, highly, highly recommend. Definitely not for everyone, but oh my God, it is so good. I think my second, another kind of older movie, but the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. That's another movie that just gives you so much to chew on thematically. It's like about capitalism, it's about exploitation, it's about how eating meat is the exploitation of animals, but this poor family is also being exploited by this same system, and it's just like a chain. And it's like, despite its reputation, it's like not remotely graphic. Like there's literally, I think, like no blood or like barely any.
Even the meat hook?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. But there's some moments of violence that are so visceral. Like it doesn't need any blood. It doesn't need the gore. Like, oh, there's some really haunting stuff in that. And yeah, so that's another one. Just like really strong. Like that one actually I find scary. Like certainly the final famous dinner scene is just like absolutely horrific to watch. So that's another. And then probably just like some fun trash. I'm gonna say, you know what I'm gonna say probably. It's the Sorority Row remake from 2009. I'm not saying it's good, but I'm saying it is so fun and stupid, and it's just like bitchy, catty one-liners, and everyone is just hamming it up. It's got Carrie Fisher, and that to me is another aspect of horror that I love. Is like, it's just having a fun time. It's not taking itself too seriously. It's just giving you blood and tits and one-liners, and those are all things that I really enjoy. So those are by no means like my three favorites, but I would say they show three facets of horror that I find myself perpetually drawn to.
So should I introduce myself?
Yeah, go ahead and do that,
Okay.
and I can quiz you from there.
Oh, okay.
Unless
okay.
Sam, you want to quiz?
No.
No, all right.
I want to enjoy.
Sam's more of a spectator.
That's right.
So I'm Mel, and I am many of the things that Brett's parents successfully stopped him from becoming. I'm a they them. That is my queer
A
and
pronoun person, if you will.
I am a dreaded pronoun. So yeah, I also have been both terrified and obsessed with horror for as long as I can remember. For me, I grew up with no censorship. Whatever my dad was watching, I was watching. So I don't know what my first horror movie was, but I do remember watching Alien when I was like 7.
Oh my God.
Watching X-Files with him, which scared the shit out of me.
Yeah.
Watching Starship Troopers when that came out, which I think I was also about 7. And we would go to the theater and watch these types of movies. Like, I was that kid that I now look at in the theater and I'm like, why is this child here? And the answer is, I guess, parents who are just not bothered to protect their kid from being traumatized. So yeah, for me, reading was also a big part of it. I do want us to include books on this podcast sometimes because I grew up with very much the Fear Street books. The R.L. Stine Fear Street books were like huge for me in elementary school. And then I also started reading a lot of Stephen King. I remember I read Carrie when I was in 3rd grade, and I did not understand a lot of that. But it was very much kind of a gateway drug for me into the genres. So yeah, I've always been very into movies, but didn't really know, I don't know, that it was like a thing you could do. It was just something I did and didn't really understand. Because we always had a lot of movies around and a lot of books. So I was always just kind of consuming content. And I lived out so we all went to high school together, but I went to the same school forever, and it was in a city far away from where I lived. So I spent a lot of time alone as a kid and would just consume, like TV and movies, and that's probably why I have pretty severe brain damage.
I think you mean brain differences.
Sorry. I'm a very differenced brain person.
Difference in brain abilities.
Yeah. But it's as I've gotten older, I've gotten to meet other people who've been interested in horror the way I've always been interested in horror. And I was unfortunately not kept away from Quentin Tarantino as a child. I had a Reservoir Dogs poster in my bedroom in high school. But that was not the most embarrassing poster I had in my bedroom as a child.
That one's not that embarrassing for you. That's more embarrassing for your parents, I would say.
Oh, yeah. Well, they have spent their whole lives being embarrassed by me. So what's one more?
Well, that one's
There's
on
more
them.
time.
Yeah, that's true. Sure, you'll disappoint them plenty more.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Every day I endeavor to bring shame upon my family name.
There you go.
But if I were to define horror, so this is a question that I wanted all of us to kind of think about today, because this is a horror podcast. And I figure for me, horror is about monsters, which may or may not be surprising to Brett.
No, I can't say that it is.
I love monster movies, but for me, when I think about horror, it is about what is harassing people, what is terrifying people, what is scaring people. So there is that reaction, as you talked about, but for me, there's always some monsters. So whether it's like an actual ghost or ghoul or Godzilla or whatever, or if that thing is a concept or is a, a plague or a gambling addiction, because I would argue that something like Uncut Gems is a horror movie, at least to me. I'm a very big tent horror movie person. Like almost everything I think of is, I think everything is a horror movie.
Me too.
It's anxiety inducing.
Yes.
I'm like,
Yeah. Like I can watch like The Terrifier all the way through, maybe a little bit between my fingers, but the last two movies I shut off because I felt like I was going to throw up were Tar and Uncut Gems.
Oh, Tar.
I can't.
I haven't seen Uncut
really-
Gems, but I have seen Tar, and I gotta say,
Tar really
I
got
get it,
me.
and it is a horror movie.
It is.
Yes.
It is.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about what those monsters are. Sometimes they're literal, sometimes they're figurative. I do love the pretentious, artsy-fartsy horror movies where it's all, allegory.
It's all a metaphor.
It's all a metaphor. Like, I love that shit.
The monster is trauma
People roll their eyes at
Spoilers.
it, but
for every movie.
Every single movie.
yeah, no, I mean, I still dig it.
Would you like to give us the three horror movies that you would say define your taste or like how you view the genre?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, like my pure monster movie would probably be The Host. And there are 500 movies called Host.
By Stephanie Meyer.
No.
Talk about horror.
No, that movie is...
Stay tuned for our Stephanie Meyer episode.
one of my top 10 cave set movies is Stephanie Meyer's The Host, where you can like just see how shitty those caves are that they're in. But that's not the one I mean. No, I'm talking about Bong Joon-ho's monster movie classic, The Host. I just think it's a perfect movie. I love a funny horror movie, especially one that's still a scary, suspenseful horror movie. Like it functions within the genre. It's not just pure lampoon. I would maybe then say, the Suspiria remake. I will also include a remake. I am not above remakes at all. No shade to Argento's Suspiria, but I think that the remake is so beautiful. And I wouldn't even describe it as necessarily scary. It's just like a beautiful movie to behold. I love it so much. And then, I'll do this is definitely not one of my favorite movies ever made, but I'll say Beau is Afraid. Like to me, that is a horror movie that fully like perfectly represents what I love about like odd, anxiety inducing, like I am Jewish. We went and saw that movie. I saw it with Brett and my husband. And when we left, my husband was like, is Ari Aster Jewish? and then Brett said, are the Jews okay? And I was like, yes and no. So yeah, those are three that I truly love and think kind of represent how I love to view. Did I say three? Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did.
3 for horror. All right, Sam, you cannot avoid.
Oh, it's my time.
Yes. So tell us about yourself
Oh my
and your
gosh.
relationship to horror.
I need to make something clear from the start that I've been wanting this podcast forever. So
And by this podcast, you mean...
the one I'm sitting here listening to today,
But you wanted it to feature...
Brett and Mel. Yeah. I wanted to enjoy a Brett and Mel podcast. Been asking this for years, and then finally it's happening, and I'm here getting to watch and listen to my new favorite podcast live, and it's pretty incredible.
And the
this
cost
feeling.
was your participation.
Right.
Yeah. We weren't going to do this without Sam basically making us. But we're also very glad to have our more normaler person.
Layman, if you will.
Yeah, I think a
Get
layman.
ready for
Or a
my
layman.
answers.
I'm so ready.
Okay. So I just wanted to make that clear, but who am I in my relationship with horror?
Yeah.
Well, I am Samantha, and I define horror as anything I find scary.
I gotta respect that answer.
I'm not. It's not necessarily because of how I was raised, like maybe because you're the older, Brett's the older child, Mel's the younger child. I'm the only child of my parent, my mom, and she kind of kept scary stuff away from me, but I more think of it as I kept scary stuff away from me. And she mostly, when I was a kid, there was a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger in our home.
Hell yeah.
Some True Lies, watched True Lies a million times, so not a horror movie.
I'll think about it, and
but-
I'll find a way to make it.
I
But
bet
it
you
leads
can-
up
I can
to
get that on
one
you.
of my first, what I consider horror movies I've ever seen was in the theater around the time of Y2K, and it was End of Days.
That
So
is a straight up horror movie.
I don't think I was double digits. Like I was 9 maybe.
There's a weird sex
scared.
scene in that movie.
I don't remember it. I just remember I think my
I
eyes
do.
were closed and I didn't want to be there. I've never seen it since. I've never recovered. I was so scared.
Have you seen that movie?
No, I haven't.
Oh my god.
I watched a YouTube video about it once.
It
but
has
yeah, I
a
don't-
very, very sexy Gabriel Byrne in it, and a very unsexy in that movie Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, because he's just like a trash man. He's
I'm sure
just
my
like,
mom was still about it.
Yeah.
I mean, he's
I'm
still.
sure.
That was the whole point.
Your mom
of
was
us
very
going.
consistent. Yeah, your mom was
Like
very
I don't want a
consistent.
babysitter. Come
Yeah.
on, let's go.
It's not a good movie, but I do like that movie.
And then also, what I realized while listening to you is both of you, is I prolonged not seeing horror for a long time because on the school bus to and from school, I would listen to my friends who watched horror movies and they would tell me the whole story. So I knew it and I was scared. I knew arachnophobia and I was scared. There were a few others. I think it took me a long time to watch the Scream movies because I was told them first and I was scared. So
So you were experiencing horror like a campfire story.
yeah. But and maybe that's part of why I always love movies and things to be ruined for me. I'm like, I want you to just tell me what happens and then I want to enjoy it.
Yeah, you
Which
are
is
a
the
spoiler
exact
queen.
opposite.
And Mel is the opposite.
Yeah,
of
I would say
that.
that's just degeneracy
I'm like,
to me.
give
I don't
a
even
hint,
watch.
Let me know.
I mean, I literally think both of you are
I need
degenerates.
to know if I'm gonna be scared.
Because
How
there's
scared.
I read the will read the last
I don't do
page
it anymore.
Yeah, but
I don't do it anymore.
you used to read the last page of a book.
Sicko shit.
Yeah.
I think I was hurt at some point, and I was like, I need to know if this is a happy ending or a sad ending before I continue.
Whereas Mel is that person who's covering eyes and ears in the theater for a trailer,
Yeah, I still
which
do
I
that.
also
Really?
find degenerate behavior.
Oh, right. No, not because you're scared, because you want no spoilers.
Yeah.
Got it.
One thing I love about movies is not knowing anything going in. I mean, obviously I have to pick movies, so I know that I'm the sort of cringy, pretentious film dork, because I'll literally just be like, oh, which production company is releasing it? Like, oh, is
Oh, it's
Neon?
not- yeah, I was gonna say
Is it Neon?
Neon or A24?
Is it
'Cause otherwise I'm not
A24?
interested.
Is it Neon? Because then I literally won't look at trailers. I'll try not to look at production stills. I want to know who's directing it. I don't even want to know who's in the cast. So this idea of reading the last page or having someone or like reading the Wikipedia description. It's like, for me, it's like I'm losing my rush. So keep going.
And I want to lose the rush.
Yeah.
I don't want to be so scared.
And I'm somewhere in the middle. Like, I don't really seek out spoilers, but like, I will probably like look at a cast list and like, I'll watch a trailer. I mean, if I'm like watching it at home, I might click away. Like, you know, I might stop it once I'm like, okay, I'm in, and I don't want. And also, if the trailer seems like it's going to recap the movie, then I won't like cover my eyes and ears in the theater, but I would maybe like get on my phone or, you know, just kind of like.
You don't want to see every single kill in the new Halloween movies just in the trailer?
I didn't, but yeah, I didn't want to, and yet we all did. Those trailers were absolute garbage.
But yeah, so I do watch scary movies, horror movies now, mostly because of the two of you.
Yes.
Proud of us.
And, you know, whether it's hearing, well, now when I hear A24 because of y'all, I'm like, I'll go see it. And that's how I saw Men in the Theater with Brett when I was second trimester pregnant.
Opening weekend, yeah, she's second trimester pregnant. Did you just find out, like, the sex? Is that
yes,
well, yeah,
I did.
You, like, announced it to us at dinner, and then we went over to the AMC and saw Men in a theater of, like, AMC normies, and no one was ready.
No one.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought it was good.
It was very good. But, like, I walked out being like, I can't believe they just, like, unleashed that on an unsuspecting public.
And you know what? My birth story was similar.
Oh my God.
Maybe it's just various versions of Rory Kinnear.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yeah, tell us about some horror movies. If you can get 3.
Yes, I was scared at first when you said pick 3, and I said, oh.
Well, there's one that almost was
ready.
on my list, but I didn't include it because I know you feel a way about it. So I'm very benevolent and kind.
Well, I knew none of y'all's movies, so I wrote them down.
Don't watch the movie. Well, maybe watch The Host, but
And the good news is I didn't even watch Stephanie Meyer's version of The Host.
don't watch that. It's terrible.
Because I had read the book. But, yeah, so I wrote them down. I'm a little scared of seeing the OG Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
It's not for you.
It's not, and I
We
did
will make
see
you watch
the
it,
remake,
but-
but maybe we'll save it.
Save it for the pod.
But yeah, so mine are, I think, less scary, but I will start with just one of my favorite movies. Even though I'm a scaredy cat, this one has like a stranglehold on my heart from being a teenager, which is Ginger Snaps, which I'm assuming was...
No, that was never going to be on my list.
Oh, then I think it's not on my list.
Oh,
Another
okay,
one.
okay.
Okay, well, Ginger Snaps, even though it is a little gory, it's a little weird. I don't know, I just loved it. And even though it was, you know, it's not too scary.
Yeah, you
But
introduced
I've watched
me.
it a trillion times.
You introduced me to that movie, and that's definitely one of my favorites. Love it. It's just so, and again, like just very thematically rich. I love the relationship between the sisters. Yeah, it's so good.
And then even the mom,
Yes.
you know, I was like, okay.
Mimi Rogers,
Yes.
the woman who Tom Cruise's
Ex-wife
first
of Tom
wife,
Cruise.
who introduced him to Scientology.
Oh.
Yes, she's to blame. But at least she made Ginger Snaps.
Thank God. And then, okay, so my second one is I picked it because I love florals. And it's Midsommar.
Yes.
Oh, 2 Ari Asters on our list.
Yeah.
I thought it was gorgeous. I was very scared, but also I feel like in that movie I understood the good scary feeling of horror, where you're like, I'm freaking the fuck out, but also I'm like left with so many questions.
It maybe helps that like the aesthetics of that movie are so beautiful.
Yeah, it's
like
truly.
those sets and like all the flower crowns and stuff, and like the paintings on the walls and like dormitory. I just think it is like such gorgeous production design,
It's
which
just
maybe helps some of the horror go
incredibly
down.
beautiful. Yes, but also I feel like it kind of enhances the horror too, because you're like, you don't expect this here. But
You
then
picked
also,
2
like,
movies already that take place predominantly like during the day. I just noticed that.
I guess that's true.
because that's how I can watch.
That's when I watch them as well.
Okay, and my last one is A Tale of Two Sisters.
Oh.
Yes, I was just wondering if you might say that.
And that also is special to me because I think Brett and I picked it up from Blockbuster in high school back
On
in
a
the day.
whim, I don't know if
And I was like, okay, we'll watch it. I'll be a little scared. Watch it at your house. And loved it. And I was very scared. But I loved it. And then watched the American version, the Uninvited, and went, mm-mm.
Yeah, that was real bad. Quite a drop off between the original and
Oh,
remake.
really?
Yeah,
A foreign film remade in an American version was bad? That's unheard of.
You're right. It's the only one.
And luckily, we did watch the Korean version first.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are my three. And that last one, A Tale of Two Sisters, I would think that's more of like the classic horror in my head. Maybe a little Ginger Snapsy. But then Midsommar, I was like, oh, okay. It can be beautiful too. And then also special shout out to Happy Tree Friends, because that shit scared me.
Yeah.
Scared me. I still cannot watch it. I just would like to include that as well. Were you going to guess Tremors? Or were you gonna
I was going to guess Tremors.
Tremors I just love. I'm not even that scared of it. I just love Tremors.
So I never thought. Let's just talk about Tremors real quick.
Yeah, please.
Because Tremors almost made it on my list, but I didn't want to have 3 like literal monster movies on my list, although I could definitely do that.
Sure.
Tremors to me is a perfect film. I don't think it's particularly scary. And I think a lot of that has to do with when I first watched Tremors, I had already rotted my brain with much scarier movies. I just think Tremors is so fun.
It is fun.
And I have this problem where when I was in like middle school and high school and I would have friends come over to spend the night, I would make them watch like horror movies that I had seen a lot of times because I wanted to like share this thing that I knew was special that not many people knew about, right? I was like, I have this special treat and I'm going to show it to you. And then my friends would be like, I want to go home.
You're
I'm
fucked in the head.
scared.
Get me out of here.
Like,
Mom, can you pick me
They
up?
react now.
Well, I'm still trying to traumatize my friends successfully most of the time. But yeah, I just remember watching Tremors with one of my friends, who I'll tell you later who it was because you guys know because we all went to school together. And I just remember there's like this scene where the guys who are working, they're like jackhammering the pass that like summons the tremor, the graboid, and it just like shows his hard hat filled with what can only be described as orange goo. And it's supposed to be blood, but they clearly got the coloring wrong for it, and like the viscosity is wrong. And it's not scary, but I just remember like looking over at my friend with a big smile on my face and just seeing terror on her face. And I was like, oh, maybe next time. I'll get him next time. They'll like the next one. But I do, yes. Special shout out to Tremors is one of my favorite movies of all time that I know Sam and I share our Tremors love. But okay, I think it's time for an ad break.
Yes, we're going to take a brief break, stretch our legs. But first, a few words from our sponsor, Anus Burger. Anus Burger. All the beefy goodness you can slide down your gullet. Oh, no. Toasted buns for days. Eat it up, piggy.
Oh, no.
And with that, we'll see you after the break.
God. And we're back. Thank you, Brett, for that disgusting and enticing ad read.
You're welcome. It's just a product I'm really passionate about.
Yeah, I think, as we slut ourselves out for product, which we will do on this, I want it to be things we're truly passionate about.
Yeah.
Like anus burgers.
Yeah, I think it's so important that our products we endorse align with our values.
Yeah, this is a value-oriented podcast. But yeah, anyway, now that we've eaten our anus burgers and shit them out.
Yes.
Out our.
What?
Anus. Out our anus.
Oh, yes.
Is that the. Okay.
Yeah. Duh.
Where's the anus come from?
Did you not study the copy
No,
they sent
I
over to read?
didn't,
Oh my god, you guys, so unprofessional.
Someone didn't eat their anus burger. So this is kind of our opportunity to introduce you all to who we are. We're going to have on this podcast various different segments that we explore. But I want us to always be sharing with each other what trash we have been consuming lately, whether it's good trash, bad trash, or non-trash. Mm-hmm. So, Brett.
Yes.
What you been watching?
So I made a mental note that we were going to talk about it because we've all seen it multiple times. But Dune Part 2.
Dune Part 2.
Watched it in IMAX with Sam the Thursday night that it opened.
We had our buckets.
Yes, and we got our popcorn buckets. So I was fisting that Shai Halusi, which is what I said on Letterboxd. And no one liked it, and I was like, am I just too gross for a Letterboxd?
I just teared up. That got me.
I'm just so proud of Shai Halusi. Okay, whatever. And then I also, this is going to be something you'll hear a lot on this podcast. I inflicted Dune Part 2 upon my mother.
Yes.
And this poor woman,
Oh, no.
I think maybe it's a subconscious form of revenge for her sheltering me so much. Is
Yeah.
I'm just going to traumatize the shit out of her. Because I took her to see, Mandy in theaters. We saw The Lighthouse in theaters. I made her watch The Neon Demon with me on TV. Yeah, yes. The Witch, I made her watch on TV, a bunch of stuff. And she's always just I really didn't care for that. Her reaction to Mandy was the funniest because she was well, at first, just given their ages, I thought that, I was so weirded out when Nick Cage and Mandy kissed because I thought she was his developmentally challenged daughter. Oh. And I was like, you know what? I can actually see how you got there.
So did your mom have any context about Dune?
So we had watched the first part at home, when it first hit HBO Max or whatever. And she really enjoyed it. My dad watched it too, and he didn't really care. And I think it's also just that's the big movie everyone's talking about, so she was curious. And yeah, she enjoyed it actually. When we walked out, she was like, I'm going to need you to explain some stuff to me. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. I'm ready to talk about the guilds and the Bene Gesserit.
Yes.
But it was very much just so what's the deal with Paul and Chani? What's
Yeah.
that going? Is there going to be another movie after this? So I don't think the mechanics of the plot were anything that, escaped her. But yeah, I just can't stop thinking about this movie.
I
Because
loved
I
it.
loved it.
I
It was
loved
so good.
Yeah, and I really enjoyed the first one. And there's some other, another Villeneuve movie, Blade Runner 2049, is truly to me a perfect film. It is so beautiful. It actually makes me tear up at the end. I just find it so beautiful. And even though I didn't feel his Dune movies have that direct emotional component, I
for
don't
you.
feel the yeah, for me. And those are the only issues I had with it at all. Was just it could have been more chemistry with Chalamet and Zendaya.
No, they had no chemistry. So I'm a Dune head, big Dune fan.
You're a spice head.
I am a spice
Oh.
head. When I drink my Metamucil in the morning, I tell myself I'm drinking my spice.
Spice must flow.
Well,
I love it.
it looks-
That'll get me drinking mine.
Yeah.
Well, it looks just like the spice that the Baron Harkonnen drinks in the Dune miniseries that I love. I'm the one big fan of the sci-fi Dune miniseries. But yeah, no, the Chani or Cheney, I think it's actually supposed to be pronounced Cheney, but it's just
Oh,
too
is it
Dick
Chani in
Cheney.
this one?
Dick Cheney, yeah.
I think Chani makes more sense.
Yeah.
So I get why that's how it's pronounced in this. But I don't think they had a lot of chemistry, but I also think that's okay because
Yes.
they look like they're 16.
Yeah. I
So it's fine. But I absolutely loved, and I will argue that it is horror.
Yes.
There are a lot of scary horror elements, religious horror, horrifying bloodshed, and scary Harkonnens.
And the something that was very really felt like true horror to me that I really loved, that I really brought out in a way that when I read the book I feel I didn't get that, was just like the absolute horror of like losing your individuality when you get that access to the other memory. Like all of a sudden you're not just you, you're like your entire like ancestral like maternal line. Like it was like, yeah, it's kind of Lady Jessica, but it's kind of not too. Like because she's like so many like Bene Gesserit before her as well, and they're all like in there with her basically. And so when she was like, "We'll be waiting," and then her voice changed, she was all of us.
Well, and what's
so
interesting
scary.
on that note is like when she had access to everything, it increased her mission. Whereas Paul, he was like, "Oh, now I'm on it. I get it now." So I thought that was an interesting difference.
Yeah, like they both like had such stark character changes.
And she knew he'd align.
Yeah, well, and I loved that because like that's a horror too of like first it's Paul being like, it's my mom, but like it's kind of not my mom anymore. And then for Chani at the end to be like, I mean, it looks like Paul, but like this isn't really the Paul that like I've been sandbanging.
This is a spoiler-heavy podcast. Apologies.
Spoilers for a book from the fucking 1960s. If you can't handle that, I don't know what to tell you.
I do, but I think the movie is different than the book. This Villeneuve's like vision of the book. He says it's a Bene Gesserit story. Like, that's what really fascinated him. Like, Lynch was very much fascinated by the weirdness. Harrison, who did the miniseries, clearly just wanted to adapt the book as closely as he could. What I love about the Villeneuve Dune is that Lady Jessica is kind of the villain. Like, she is the scary villain. The second time I saw it in theaters, I really was just trying to pay attention to the score. Because, again, I'm a pretentious degenerate.
Oh, it was so good though.
But it's
Hans Zimmer, so like
fantastic.
you know.
Well, I'm actually not a huge fan of a lot of Hans Zimmer stuff.
I'm not either, but
I feel like he can be a little too loud for me.
I saw Interstellar in theaters.
Oh, I did not.
And I was like, can we just turn that organ down, bitch?
Like, there's some sound mixing that sometimes I'm like, I literally didn't go see Oppenheimer because I heard it was just people talking with really loud Hans Zimmer over it. And I don't know if that's fair, but it was enough to put me off.
It wasn't as egregious as other Nolan, but like, I mean, yeah.
But yeah, anytime Lady Jessica post ingestion of the water of life, every time she's on screen, there's a sinister score that plays for her, which I think is just so telling of like what Villeneuve wants us to think about this use of fundamentalist religion and the missionaries, right? The Bene Gesserit or the Jesuits.
Right.
And it's just very, very, very good. Oh my God.
It's like the Lady Jessica part is like her motivation is still like to secure Paul's position, like, you know, take her family line, the love for her husband, like all of that. But like she's also all of the Bene Gesserit and like, so she's also like a bunch of eugenicists in there too, because it's like this controlled breeding program and she's trying to make this happen and like he like is the chosen one and I'm gonna like, because when she's like, we're gonna convert them all starting with the weakest, and I was like, I'm scared. And also that fetus who's talking to her was also very scary.
But also love it.
The abomination.
Yeah.
We love our abominations.
And then another kind of horror element that I loved, this is I think my favorite stretch of the movie, was the Harkonnen homeworld, all the black and white stuff.
Amazing.
Oh my God, that whole thing was such a feast for the senses. Austin Butler really brought it.
Yeah.
He really did. Like I don't literally know him from anything else. I didn't see Elvis or like whatever. Was he like on Disney or something? I don't know.
It and decided to fall asleep.
Yeah, that might have been wise.
I did see the trailer for Elvis because it wasn't something that I thought I wanted to watch, so I watched the trailer and I thought it was a joke.
Yeah.
Like when Tom Hanks showed up doing a Foghorn Leghorn impression.
That's when I was out.
I could not stop
I
laughing.
Yeah.
Like I literally was like, this is a joke movie, right? And then because I thought it was like, you know, Tropic Thunder where they have those like fake trailers.
Well, it kind of is. It is a Baz Luhrmann movie.
So
Shade intended.
Yeah. But no, I was very pleasantly surprised with how everybody did in the movie.
Yeah, and I really loved the scene. It's so simple, but like Lady Margot is walking down that hallway and she's like following Fade and that like the lighting and they've got the weird like the
fireworks, like
that
ink
were,
blots.
Oh, it was so cool. I've never seen anything like that. And the lighting in that scene and like the kind of sinister overtones of like, we already know he's so horrible and psychotic and like powerful, and he is like putty in this woman's hands.
He's not the villain.
Like, yeah.
The Bene Gesserit they're the villains of the story.
And that scene made it really clear, I thought.
Yeah.
Because
they're pawns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I loved that, and that whole that sequence was just top notch for me.
We, my husband and I, could not stop talking about how alien the Gady Prime scenes looked, the Harkonnen homeworld, and how creative it is and thoughtful. Like, something I've been saying is that I haven't felt about a movie like Lord of the Rings until I saw Dune Part 2, where you can just see the care and thought put into every single element. Like, every different house, they have a culture that's been thought out. It's not just, well, these people wear red and these people wear, like, no shade to the miniseries, but it's, it's very,
there's some
like,
budgetary limitations.
A lot of budgetary, but it's also just not as thoughtful, because they were just trying to make the book as best as they could. Whereas Villeneuve is clearly, like, there was a lot of artistic vision that is just so clear, like the different artistic and aesthetic styles for every house. And if you have a place with a black sun or whatever, how would fireworks work if basically nothing's in color?
And they've like evolved to be these like hairless, like albino, like weird, like because they all kind of look like that. And I thought that was like so cool, because it's like that's what their sun just like has done to humans over these thousands of years or whatever that they've lived here. Yeah, it was so thoughtful, and I am holding my breath, hoping that they'll announce the next movie. I know
have to.
Villeneuve like wants to do a third, but he's like said like, I'll only do it if I think I can make it better than part 2.
Oh, good luck.
Yeah, but also he's definitely taking. He said he's like taking his time. Like he wants to have a script done before it goes forward.
I think he's making Rendezvous with Rama next, which people have been trying to adapt that forever. It is a book I've read that is.
What is it?
It's a Arthur C. Clarke book, the guy who wrote 2001: Space Odyssey. His kind of most famous book is actually, I think, Rendezvous with Rama, it's hard science fiction, and it's just so visually challenging to make, because it's basically a cylinder in space, and all around the cylinder is like the world inside of it. So it's going to be visually very challenging to have, the walls going up and above, or like the trees and all of that. So I think like Morgan Freeman talked forever about wanting to make it, but I guess Villeneuve has it now. So fingers crossed that that's what he's working on.
Anyone can do it.
He can do it. I believe in him.
He's got a great visual style, and he's very thoughtful.
So as much as we could talk about Dune 2 forever, I've watched some things. I watched the unholy Immaculate. I saw Immaculate because it was a neon picture, and at the time of us recording this podcast, Sydney Sweeney is kind of a big meme right now.
Yeah, I've been seeing that.
Her and her ginormous bazongas are...
A wooga, am I right?
The woke hate it.
Yeah.
I've not seen this
movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's only for people who are terminally online, like Brett and I.
Right.
Brain rotted online people.
Not on Killer Sudoku.
No.
No. I'm also on Killer Sudoku.
Oh, okay.
But this is kind of the funniest movie, because if there are right-wing people who go see this movie because Sydney Sweeney is in it, because they've convinced themselves that she's some kind of representative for their trad wife vision.
Right, she's like this anti-woke darling for being
all that.
blonde and hot. And then I guess because...
Her family.
Yeah, there was that whole family, and they had that MAGA-themed birthday party. I don't know if you remember this a few years ago.
She is a white woman with big tits who's very pretty. What they don't know is that she's also kind of a scream queen and has been in horror movies.
And also a good actress.
Well, apparently she was cast in this in like 2014, and like
really?
Yes, I read it, and like finally like had the clout to like get it made now that she's like a bigger name. But like I think that this was like a passion project for her. Not only was she just like find herself in it, like she was instrumental in making it happen.
Right. So I don't think that the right wing has found the right champion for them just based
No.
on this movie.
Right.
Because so I went into it knowing nothing about it. I literally knew she was in it and that it was a horror movie that Neon was producing or distributing. And so I went to the theater by myself during the day. And so basically an empty theater. And when it started, I was like, oh, this is going to be like a Rosemary's Baby or like a Exorcist, where it's going to be like a Catholic movie where it's like the good priests are fighting the demon Satans. No. This is maybe you would like it in the sense that it's
spoilerful.
It's a good for her movie, but it's absolutely
I love a good for her movie.
So I think like the good for her-ness would really appeal to both Brett and Samantha, but the horrendous, disgusting, lingering gore would maybe not be Samantha's favorite thing, but then would lean more towards Brett's disgusting nature.
Yes.
Compare it to the scene in Men where they're chopping off the arm.
It's that a lot. It's a lot of that kind of stuff. It's a lot of that. It was gross for me to watch.
So I should see it at home.
Yeah, and then just be willing to look away. Cause
I'm always willing.
Yeah,
That's not your issue.
I'm not a huge gore person, honestly. I don't like it make my tummy hurt.
I like to look at my peripheral
love
when
it.
that happens.
I don't know why, but I do. I love it.
And it is impressive. The effects in it were impressive, but it's so funny because they're now doing marketing using some of these reviews that it's been getting that are like, this was satanic. And it's like, oh, it is. Like, it is not what I thought it was going to be going into it.
Well,
It wasn't The Nun 3.
excited.
Is there a third Nun?
No. This would have been.
But yeah, it's not like those Conjuring movies that are like Christian approved sort of thing. It's not like
Christian superhero propaganda.
Yeah, Christian superhero propaganda. It's not like The Exorcist, where we're like William Peter Blatty literally was like trying to get people to be Catholic. Like, it's not that kind of thing. Like, it is kind of hateful, which I appreciate and enjoyed. So, yeah, so it was something different. I think it's, again, one of those, like you said, Men, where I was like, I cannot believe this got a wide release and normal people are going to go into the theater.
I just love when it happens.
And see this movie.
I get so tickled.
And then I saw Dream Scenario, which I only was able to finish. This is A24.
Nicolas Cage
Nicolas
starring.
Cage.
I haven't
I
seen
want
it,
to
but
see
yeah.
that. Okay.
It's on HBO streaming
Where
right
he's
now.
doing a Freddy Krueger, just appearing in dreams. I mean.
Yes.
Yeah.
It does refer that. They refer to Freddy Krueger in it. But it's a movie that I was only able to finish because I was watching it with friends, because it was like, to me, it was like Uncut Gems or Tar. Like, it was so cringe and so awkward that I was like crying and laughing, but also my stomach was like clenching. And I enjoyed it. It was another movie where I was like, I cannot believe they put money, like a bunch of production companies made this.
They promoted it pretty heavily too.
Yeah. I mean, it was good. It was
Yeah.
just like, wow. It's right now not my conspiracy theory, but my film studies thesis right now is that we're in the weirding, because we're all seeing so much generic shit, like all these Marvel movies, Disney movies, where they're all flat. They don't take risks. And I'm not saying they're bad movies, but they're like soulless. They're not vital.
Like, you know what you're gonna get before you even buy the ticket.
Yeah, and they're corporate, and so you have this other side of the coin, which are these weirdo movies that like A24, Neon, other indie people are just releasing this odd shit, like Immaculate.
I feel like there's more of like our generation coming through into the leadership of this too, and man, our generation had a bunch of weirdos.
Yeah, well, you think about like Ren and Stimpy and like even like kind of like SpongeBob, like there was just some weird gross
Courage
like
the Cowardly Dog.
Yeah,
I watched
just,
all the Cartoon
weirdness
Network.
of that like millennials were like, that's what our pop
that
culture
shaped
was.
us.
Yeah, like we were very Happy Tree Friends. Like we were very like at home with just weirdness and like
Salad fingers.
Salad fingers, yes.
We're not okay, y'all.
No.
No.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, then you got some Googling to do.
Yeah.
Pray for you.
What have you been watching, Samantha?
Ooh, so I don't know if you've heard of this, but I recently saw Dune.
Shut up.
That doesn't count. We already talked about it.
Well, no, okay. Well, I did not talk about my part yet. So I came to Dune. I did see the first one.
Yes.
Dune. I did see the first one in theaters, but I was incredibly tired, and the score lulled me to sleep.
Now you were sleeping so sweetly.
And then I think I tried to watch it at home with my husband, and he got mad at me because I also fell asleep. But I will say, seeing this one in IMAX, incredible. And I immediately was like, okay, I need to listen to the book. So that's next on my listenings. I don't know, have you heard of these other two I watched recently? One's called Surviving Edged Weapons, and one is Deadly Weapon.
No, it's called Deadly Prey.
Deadly Prey.
Yeah, so...
Predley
Weapons.
Predley Zeppelins.
Predley Zeppelins.
So I like hosting movie parties still to this day. I like to invite unsuspecting friends over to my house, and then I put on movies that I want them to watch. And I had one last night where we watched a police training video called Surviving Edged Weapons.
This is a feature length. This was a 90-minute police training video from either
88.
early 88?
88.
Okay.
And then we watched Deadly Prey, which was from 87, an action Rambo ripoff. What did you think? I could tell you love Surviving Edged Weapons.
Oh my gosh. I completed a lot of Sudoku games.
So what
when
was it
trying
about?
to not barf seeing dead bodies in their wounds. But no, it was funny. Not that one. Sorry. Deadly Prey was funny. Edged Weapons, I feel very knowledgeable about sharp weapons hiding everywhere.
It was informative about knife culture.
The knife culture.
So the structure of Surviving Edged Weapons is it kind of alternates between staged reenactments of generally actual incidents that police officers have faced.
And that's where
Which I could watch.
It shines.
Where it really shines.
Oh, those were pretty great.
Oh, they're solid gold. There's just blood everywhere. People are getting stabbed
little-
in every unmentionable place. And
Every unmentionable.
And they've got the thickest Milwaukee accents, and it is just so glorious. And we were screaming at parts just from the
Yes.
sheer rush of these great reenactments. And yet, the flip side is that they were also legitimate crime scene and autopsy photos of the real life injuries, and nothing was censored. And so
Nothing.
yeah, so there was actually some really gnarly stuff that was all just real photos.
I will say when I picked it, I was not thinking about showing guests at my home actual human dead bodies, real dead bodies.
And a lot of them.
A lot of them. In my defense, I don't think before I do things, and
That's part of the fun.
part of the charm.
So you see someone get shot with a crossbow in a reenactment, and you're like, "Yay!" And then you see a dead body with a crossbow bolt in it, and you're like, "Oh."
Yeah, it's some tonal whiplash for sure.
Yeah. Sorry.
Because even I, who am the most desensitized to, so I'm very desensitized to artificial gore. Movies, anything that's fake, I'll watch whatever and it doesn't faze me. But I very intentionally avoid real life gore.
Yeah.
I was never that person who's seeking out beheading videos. That's not me. I don't like it. If I even pass what looks like a bad car accident on the road, I will physically put my hand up and block my peripheral so I don't even have a chance of seeing what's going on. Just not even that I think it will
Too nosy.
make me super upset or whatever, but just it's kind of I don't need it in my head, so it's not going in there. And there were some moments, there were some some of the autopsy photos didn't bother me that much, but some were really
The jaw.
shocking. The jaw
Yeah,
is
the
the
jaw
specific
one
one
is-
that I'm thinking of. It's available on YouTube if you're curious, but you've been warned, dear listener. Yeah.
Sorry again.
I had a good time.
I'll do it again.
You sure will.
Yep.
But yeah, I haven't watched a lot of movies outside of that lately. I'm more of a TV show person. That's also something about me. So
Yes.
I've been really happy about Mel's movie nights because I've seen a lot more movies that I would literally never have seen.
You're welcome.
Literally,
Just imagine you sitting at
there's
home
no way.
with your husband, just like turning on like a Neil Breen movie and just like
There's no
sitting
way.
with your child, just like, oh.
No.
Oh, well.
No.
We'll get you there.
I try to bring culture, including the knife culture,
Especially the knife culture.
to my friends, whether it is making my 12-year-old friends watch Tremors.
Yes.
When I was in high school, I went through this period where every guy I would go on a date with, I would make him watch The Descent with me just so I could watch them scream.
I brought 2 non-horror movie people with me, 2 like 15, maybe 16-year-old girls, to see it in theaters. And I thought they were going to have like matching heart attacks. Like they were so scared because it's like
It is,
it's
like, the
actually
scariest
fucking
movie.
the scariest. And like I was even like having a hard time, and these are like they don't watch anything.
I've not
Have you
seen
seen
it.
it?
No, I've not seen
Oh.
it.
You're gonna.
We're gonna get you. But okay, so let's wrap up. Where can our listeners find us?
Well, Mel, I've got to say, I'm so glad you asked because I've just been dying to share. You can find us on Instagram at Queer and Loathing Pod. That's all letters, no numbers or special characters.
No ampersand.
No
Yeah.
ampersand.
They wouldn't
Don't
let us do
think
it.
about it. Get that disgusting thought out of your head. There's no ampersand.
You can also follow me on my Letterboxd. I have mid-level reviews of things. I'm not as funny as a lot of the Letterboxd trolls, but I am annoying and on it. You can follow me at HaterTot, like a tater tot, but with an H, one word. And you can actually try to boost my likes and follow all my lists. I really like making lists, so I have lists.
Yeah. And there may be more platforms to come as we gain more and more fame and adulation, respect.
Yep.
Yeah. But that's going to all depend on you. So if you're listening and you enjoyed this or even tolerated it, please, by all means, go to your, podcast listening platform of choice. Give us a 5-star review, 5-star rating. Leave us a review. Like, comment,
Like it.
share, and subscribe or
Like
whatever
and
it is.
subscribe. Hit the bell.
Hit the bell for notifications.
I don't know if podcast apps have bells, but hit it.
Well, I'm going to want you to look, okay? I'm putting this on you. This is
Let us know
homework.
if you find
Yeah,
it.
this is a very serious podcast.
I don't even care if you liked this. Just do it anyway, even if you just feel bad for us.
Yes, if
Especially.
you pity us, then that's all the more reason to just, throw us a fucking bone, people.
I worked so hard to annoy these two, Mel and Brett, into having a podcast. So please, let's
Yes.
continue it.
Don't let all of Sam's efforts be in vain.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Queer.
I'm Loathing.
And I'm Samantha, and pray for me. I'm worried about this, the descent, for sure.
Bye.
Later, haters.